And now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Radio Show.
Thank you, Paul. You get over your cold?
Oh, yes, it's fine.
Sound good.
Daydreaming. I didn't
What?
hear you talk. I was daydreaming.
He was daydreaming, he said, friend.
Didn't hear you talk to me.
No, I just wanted to be sure you're ready to assist us in the next half hour because we've got some interesting features. We've got Down the Byways coming along and Hobby Hut, and we're trying to increase our listenership today by offering a fortune in prizes to the first person who can identify our Bob and Ray mystery tune. We'll play a few notes of a popular song, and if you can name it, you just race to the phone and call us. You could win a giant cash jackpot that has now grown to $21.
In addition, you can win a lot of valuable merchandise prizes by being our lucky caller. You'll receive a coupon good for $5 off on the purchase of any new car or truck from Murdoch Motors in Shady Grove, Missouri. Also, a lovely ballpoint pen is yours free when you finance that car purchase through the Drovers State Bank of Shady Grove.
And last but far from least, you'll get a free cup of coffee at the Shady Grove Cafe while you're waiting for your car loan to be approved. So grab a pencil and jot down our phone number. It's...
Well, unfortunately, our studio engineer went ahead and played the tune.
You like that?
Bob could give you the number to call. However, we're in the book, so if you'll just use common sense about it.
Oh, somebody did, I think. Apparently, we have at least one listener with common sense because our first call is coming in right now. Hello.
Hello? Is this the Bob and Ray phone number that's in a different area code, but that I cleverly obtained anyway?
Yes, and my congratulations to you on being bright enough to reach us, sir.
Well, thank you. It was especially miraculous since I'm calling from Tahiti, where it has to be handled by an overseas operator and usually takes several hours.
Well, it's amazing to hear from a listener halfway around the world. Now, can you identify our mystery tune?
Oh, sure. I recognize it right away. It's a local Polynesian folk song entitled Na Husami Kula Wahama.
No, I'm terribly sorry, but you're wrong.
Wait a minute. I need to translate that into English for you because that may be the way you've had it listed.
Well, yes, we do have it in English, but even so,
But that's what I thought. So to win the prize, just let me add that Na Huami Kula Wahama means the lovely Huami is in bloom on the side of the Wahama.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. That still isn't close.
It only seems that way because I haven't finished translating. You see, Huami is the flower. Well, it's similar to that you people in the States call a geranium.
That's very interesting, but there's nothing like that in the title of our mystery tune.
Oh, then we'll come back to that. First, let me tell you about Wahama. That's the Polynesian word for one of those things that slopes down next to your house. What do you call those?
Well, I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Oh, you know, when your house sits up high and there's a slanty piece of ground that drops down to the street. What do you call that in English?
Well, I don't think it has a name. It's just an embankment.
That's it. That's the word, embankment. So in English, that makes the title of the song, The Lovely Geranium Blooms on the Side of Your Embankment.
No, definitely not. Today's mystery tune, sir, was Begin the Begin.
What does that mean in English?
Well, I'm not completely sure, but however...
Well, how do you know I'm not right?
Well, I've heard the lyrics. When I try to substitute your words, they don't make any sense.
I'd be willing to bet that a begin is either a geranium or an embankment.
No, I'm quite sure it isn't.
Well, I think you're being pretty arbitrary for a guy who admits he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
This phone call is costing me an arm and a leg, and you won't even give me the benefit of the doubt. I plan to see my lawyer about this.
Fine, you do that, and goodbye and aloha.
Aloha is a Hawaiian. I'm in Tahiti.
Wherever you are, you struck out. And that means we'll be adding, how much, Ray? $3 to our giant jackpot next time when we again search for a winner in our Bob and Ray Mystery Tune Contest. Now we bid you a most cordial welcome to the Bob and Ray Public Service feature, You and Your Symptoms. Here with us again to answer a vital health question sent in by one of our listeners is Dr. Nurkum B. Oberholzer. Dr. Oberholzer.
Excuse me, you better just make that Mr. Oberholzer for today. I should have gotten my MD certificate from that correspondence school in Honduras by now, but I guess it was delayed in the mail.
Oh, maybe. It'll be along shortly, enabling you to launch a brilliant medical career. Meantime, here's a question received from a sickly gentleman in Kansas who writes, 3 days ago I developed a runny nose and a sore throat and a slight temperature. My doctor told me to stay in bed and drink plenty of liquids, and he never mentioned the name of the disease I have. and I'm worried that he's keeping something from me. Can you give me a diagnosis?
Well, what part of Kansas did you say the man is from?
I don't think he mentioned that, but it may be here someplace. Oh, the postmark is Topeka.
Well, at least we have that much to go on. You know, when there's an outbreak of bubonic plague, it's important to pinpoint the exact location as fast as possible.
Oh, what makes you think this man is suffering from bubonic plague? It just sounds like a simple head cold to me.
Well, the symptoms are quite similar in the early stages, and it takes a skilled medical person to know that very few residents of Kansas can catch cold at this time of the year. So I'm sorry to say that only one other diagnosis remains, and
Well, if you're certain...
that's assuming the patient doesn't start throwing fits. Now, if he starts throwing fits, then his illness could just be the result of a curse put on him by some spooky person in the neighborhood.
Well, that sounds better than bubonic plague. So for his sake, I hope it's only a curse. Thank you, Mr. Oberholzer, for answering another listener's health question here on today's session of You and Your Symptoms. Over to you, Ray.
Well, thank you. We're fortunate in having here in our Bob and Ray Consumer Affairs in the studio our Bob and Ray Consumer Affairs Advisor, Hoyt Netley, with us again today. Mr. Netley is on the staff of Syracuse University. And, sir, I hope your trip to the studio hasn't caused you to, neglect any of the students up there.
No, I don't imagine they've even noticed I'm gone. They're usually busy attending classes and things of that type.
All right. Well, come to think of it, you've never told us exactly what you do at Syracuse. I just assumed you were a member of the faculty.
Well, you're quite right about one thing, Ray. I've never told you exactly what I do up there.
Well, I guess you still don't want to go into it, so let's move right along to a discussion of the consumer products that you've evaluated since your last visit here.
Well, I have one item here that I certainly want to warn parents against buying, Ray. It's a children's bath toy, as you can see. A ducky is what my little grandson would call it.
Well, it's a duck, all right, but so far as being a bath toy, I don't
I'm glad
think...
to see you have some reservations about it, too. I'd say it's much too large for very young children to play with safely in the tub. But the worst part is that it's not made of soft rubber or lightweight celluloid.
No, it's obviously made of wood, but the reason for that...
I know what you're thinking, Ray. It's probably imported from some third-world country where wood is cheaper than sponge rubber or celluloid. But that's no excuse for parents to let their toddlers risk picking up a lot of splinters in the tub, wouldn't you agree?
Well, yes, I guess I'd agree. But the point really is...
Also, Ray, these cumbersome things are not cheap. They actually cost more than plastic or rubber ducks. And that's another argument against buying one for your small child to play with in the tub.
Well, I don't think you need to present any more arguments on that, Mr. Netley. This duck isn't intended for children to play with. It's a hand-carved duck decoy made for hunters.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware that those people played with toys in the bathtub. But I still wouldn't recommend buying one. Even grown-ups can get splinters in the soft, fleshy parts of their bodies.
Okay. Well, then your safety warning about the product is certainly in order. Now, I see you have something over there that's labeled Bargain of the Week.
Oh, yes. These are really something, Ray. They're small, round discs that come in packages of 12 at the hardware store for only 49 cents. I've found that each disc can be used in a public telephone to make a 25-cent call, so that's a remarkable saving.
Well, this is a package of lead washes, Mr. Netley.
Yes, I believe it makes some mention of that on the wrapper.
Well, do you think it's legal to use one of these instead of a quarter to make a phone call?
Well, I really don't know about the legal aspect. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a consumer affairs advisor. I can spot a bargain when I see one.
Indeed, you can, sir. And at 12 for 49 cents, they could save a person a lot of money before he's arrested. Mm-hmm. So what's next?
This is a daily newspaper I bought with me from Syracuse, Ray, but there are others similar to it available in most cities.
Yeah, we have them here, too. What about them?
Well, they're a consumer ripoff, Ray. The publishers send children barely in their teens out to sell subscriptions to these things at prices ranging up to 25 cents a copy, even more in some places.
Well, I guess newspapers are even more than 25 cents in some places. Well, what's your point?
Well, I was shocked to find that the items I paid good money to read in this paper are the same ones I get on television newscasts for nothing. I wonder how many consumers know that.
I have no idea.
I think the public should wake up. The idea of using cute youngsters as shills to sell newspaper subscriptions is appalling. And I admit the initial cost of a television set is higher, but once you've amortized that over the course of a few years, you're getting all your news free.
True, and of course, it would take even less time to gain back the cost of a radio than a TV set.
Maybe. I haven't checked the price of new radios in years.
Well, that might be a consumer topic for you to pursue on a future visit then.
Might very well be.
But I see we're about out of time for today, so we'll say thanks for now, and we'll all look forward to your next visit from Mr. Hort Netley, the Bob and Ray Consumer Affairs Advisor. Nice jacket.
Thank you. Join us now as we journey once again to Garish Summit, with its endless tales of intrigue among the socially prominent. There, in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As our drama continues, irresponsible Caldwell Murchfield remains in control of the family business after seizing power from his weak-willed brother Rodney. We find Caldwell in his new executive office as Rodney enters for what may be the last time.
Hey, Rodney, how'd you get in the building? I told the guards to take away your gate pass after I cleverly got you fired.
Hey, let me in to file some papers with the health insurance office, Caldwell. I'll need to spend several months in a sanitarium now that you've shattered my career by conniving to have Mother fire me as president of the Murchfield Lead Company.
Well, I think you're being a little overly dramatic, Rodney. Besides, you can't use your company health insurance to go to a sanitarium. I had your policy canceled the day you went off the payroll.
Caldwell, your cruelty sometimes defies belief.
Thank you. Now, if you'll be good enough to clear out. Your tears are making spots on my genuine leather chair.
Well, very well, I'll go. But I'm not finished with you. I'm convinced you have some dark secret to hide, and when I discover what it is, I plan to tell Mother so she can fix your wagon good.
Do come in, young man. I'm Agatha Murchfield. The butler said you brought me some scandalous news about my son Caldwell.
Yes, ma'am. My name's Sparky, and I work in the mailroom at Murchfield Lead.
Well, that's a good place to start rising through the ranks. My son Rodney began in the mailroom, and he was soon president of the whole company.
Well, of course, being your son may have helped his career along.
Yes, as I recall, I made him sales manager before the end of his first week, and that was before my other son Caldwell earned his Master of Business Administration degree from Harvard and became a more qualified executive than Rodney.
Well, that's what I came to talk to you about. You see, I noticed Caldwell's diploma in his office, and the word Harvard is spelled wrong on it. Also, the signature at the bottom reads Mickey Mouse.
Are you inferring that Caldwell's diploma may be a forgery?
It's phony as a $3 bill, if you'll excuse my French.
I don't know what to say. Why would Caldwell deceive me just to take over the firm from his beloved younger brother?
Oh, I can think of a couple of reasons, ma'am. First, he has a burning hatred for his beloved younger brother, and second, Caldwell owes such a big gambling debt to the mob that he needs to embezzle a lot of company funds. Just call this phone number and ask for Mr. Big if you don't believe me.
Hey, Lefty, I want you to answer the phone if it rings. That Welch Caldwell Murchfield may call and beg for more time to make his loan payment. He needs to be told we mean business.
Sure thing, boss. I'll talk to him real scary and then make that strange throat noise that lets people know I'm a mad dog killer.
That's probably him now. Get it.
Got it. Hello, Underworld Enterprises. And before you say a word, just let me tell you one thing, Murchfield. Guys who deal with us get their fingernails pulled out for being slow with the checkbook. What? Oh, sorry, ma'am. I was expecting somebody else. It's for you, boss, a dame.
Hello? Yeah. I got the figures on his balance right here. It's $495,000 plus this week's interest, which comes to a total of $612,800. Yeah. We take cash, if you got proper identification. Okay. Fine. Goodbye.
Who was it?
Murchfield's mother. She's going to pay off his debt. And then get even by doing something worse to him than we ever dreamed of.
Will Caldwell mistakenly blame Rodney for tipping off Agatha? Will Rodney mistakenly file a claim with Blue Cross even though he has no health insurance? And what about Mr. Big's assumption that the woman on the phone was really Agatha? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we hear Caldwell say,
Gee whiz, Mom. No TV for a week just because I've been naughty?
That's in the next thrilling episode when we once again return to Garish Summit. And now, just a brief reminder that the fine entertainment on today's show is being brought to you in part by the McGonigal Soap Company. Only McGonigals, among all leading brands of bath soap, still contains the time-tested formula of animal fat, lye, and pine tar that won the trust of your grandmother almost a century ago.
Take it from us, friends. Nothing beats lye for reaching dirt particles embedded deep down in your skin. And that touch of pine tar in McGonigals adds the scent of a freshly paved country road to your bath. So next time you shop for bath soap, pick up the dark gray bar in the attractive dark gray box. McGonigals.
Then notice how fresh and tingly you feel after you've scraped it across your tender skin. The name again, McGonigals. If it was good enough for your grandmother, it should be good enough for you.
And now, through the magic of live radio, we again join Farley Gerard in a remote corner of America as he continues his endless tour down the byways. Today, Farley has parked his deluxe motorhome in Flaxton, North Dakota, to bring us another of his homespun reports. So come in, please, Farley Gerard.
Long years ago, the one-room schoolhouse was the cultural center of small-town America, but no more. Today's farm children ride on great yellow buses to consolidated schools far away, except in a few places like Flaxton, North Dakota. In Flaxton, the doors of the one-room school remain open, thanks to 49 years of effort by a man named Emmett Horvath.
Excuse me, but it's been 51 years of effort.
The exact figure isn't important, so if you just let me finish setting the scene here.
Oh, sure, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Emmett Horvath is the only teacher at the Flaxton School. He's also the janitor and the choir master and the baseball coach. And he's been doing it all for almost half a century now.
It's been more than half a century. 51 years is more.
Well, I can see you're not going to let me finish with this, Mr. Horvath. Suppose you just tell us why you've operated the Flaxton School for so long on the small budget you're given.
Well, I love working with kids who thirst for knowledge. It started years ago when they'd flock around and ask me questions just because I was the only one who'd been to high school at the county seat.
Their little eyes shining with inquisitive wonder, I suppose.
Not that I recall, no. It was more like they'd come to me and say, "How much is 6 times 4, Mr. Horvath?" And I'd say, "About 10, I think." And then they'd be happy to have learned something new.
They'd be happy even though it's 6 plus 4 that's 10, not 6 times 4.
Yeah, I just give them the best answer I could. And they'd be pleased. Same way their children and grandchildren are now when I answer questions here at the old Flaxton School.
But now, of course, you have books where the youngsters can look up the correct answers with your help.
No, this is kind of an old-fashioned community. The people don't believe in a school with a lot of frills. So there's never been any money for books or things like that.
In other words, the vivid memory of your own education has been the sole source of learning for 2 generations of local children.
That's right. As General Custer put it, a teacher is a beacon of light for those who could otherwise live in darkness.
Well, that's a grand quotation, even though I'm sure it doesn't come from General Custer.
Well, I tell the kids it does. And, of course, their parents back me up because I taught them the same thing 35 years ago.
Well, it's good to know that you've been consistent in your teaching down through the years.
Oh, yeah. You can't confuse kids by changing your facts. Like I remember years ago when a student asked me what the largest country in the world was. I didn't know for sure, so I said Mexico, just to satisfy her.
And you never corrected your mistake?
Well, I don't know that it was a mistake. Everybody who went to the Flaxton School for the past 51 years thinks that the largest country in the world is Mexico. So maybe it really is.
Tell me, Mr. Horvath, have any graduates of your school ever tried to go on to college?
Yes, one girl did, but she flunked out of A&M the first year. I never understood that. She always seemed like a bright kid when she was here at Flaxton.
Well, maybe she just got homesick and it hurt her grades.
That's quite possible. I've always felt that children should be educated close to home so they can learn from their parents as well as from me.
But, of course, their parents were also misinformed by you.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle, and I hope I keep it going for as long as I can to ring this old school bell here. Kids are, naturally inquisitive, and they'll always have a place to come drink from the cup of knowledge while Emil Horvath is around.
And so an old man's dream continues to burn bright here on the barren plains of North Dakota. And a third generation of townspeople now benefit from that dream. Perhaps there aren't many one-room schoolhouses left because there aren't many Emmett Horvaths left. And we're glad we had a chance to meet this one. Now we pack up to leave Flaxton so we can meet other people and hear other stories down the byways. Till our next stop, this is Farley Gerard saying so long for now. Well, I think we have time for one of our favorite entertainment features, the Hobby Hut. Here in the weeks ahead, we hope to arouse your interest in a lot of new leisure time activities. To chat with the outstanding hobbyists in various fields, we feel honored to have with us Mr. Hobby himself, the editor of Wasting Time magazine, Neil Clummer. Welcome to our Bob and Ray family again, Neil.
Well, thanks very much. I've really been a big fan of you guys for years, Ray, so it's a real thrill.
I'm not Ray, I'm Bob.
Well, I never paid much attention to which was which. I'm usually cataloging my collection of obsolete razor blades when you're on the air, so I only listen with half an ear. But it's a real thrill to take time out from my more important work to appear with you regularly. And I think I have a very interesting guest for your audience to meet today.
Yes, I noticed that gentleman unpacking albums of some kind over in the corner there. So why don't I just bow out and let you proceed with your inaugural show here, Neil?
All right, we should do that, Ray. And now I'd like to introduce all of you listeners to the dedicated hobbyist who's going to be sharing his leisure time interest with us today. He's Mr. Gordon Blightwood of Kearney, Nebraska. Now, I wonder if you'd tell us what's in these beautifully bound albums that you've brought to the studio with you, sir.
Yes, most assuredly, Neil. I never get tired of showing these off to anybody who's interested in seeing them. For 30 years now, my life's been almost completely wrapped up in collecting meatloaf.
Well, that sounds like a fascinating hobby, and it's certainly a most unusual one, Mr. Blightwood. Are all of these albums filled with different recipes for meatloaf that you've picked up over the years?
I don't just collect the recipes, Neil. As I indicated, I collect meatloaf. I have thin slices of more than 800 varieties mounted in these albums. See, I arranged this system for mounting and preserving myself.
Yeah, I see now. Each album page has several openings where slices of meatloaf can be inserted, and there's a clear plastic over the front and back.
Yes, that's so you can observe the meat from either side without touching the specimens. And, of course, the space underneath for labeling. I had to design all this myself. There aren't any ready-made albums for meatloaf collections on the market yet.
Well, I'm sure it'll all change as the hobby gains in popularity.
Yes, undoubtedly. And I'm hoping someone will devise a cooling system for each album page. I keep my collection in the refrigerator at home, and when I take it out for display at hobby shows, some of the meatloaf starts to get a little gamey.
Well, look, I was noticing that this slice here on the first page is covered with a thick layer of mold.
Well, that specimen you're looking at is almost 60 years old, believe it or not, from a large meatloaf served at the White House during the Woodrow Wilson administration. And that's the last remaining slice known to exist.
I'm sure it must be the only one left. 60 years would be a long time for anyone to keep part of a meatloaf.
Yes, that's right. And, of course, that's the real challenge of this hobby. So many varieties are presumed to be extinct. History speaks of meatloaf made of wild pigs being eaten by the Prussians in the 17th century. But I've prowled through hundreds of antique shops in Europe, and I can't find any of it left.
Well, it's a shame to think of such a priceless collector's item being lost forever. But I guess with something that's perishable, it could all disappear in 300 years.
I'm afraid that's what happened. This slice right here is the oldest piece in my collection. It's venison meatloaf, made on the American frontier around 1840. I found it under the floor of a cabin that had been burned by the Indians.
Gee, you can really tell that's an old specimen, all right.
It's
Just
old.
Looks like a little brown rock.
Well, of course, all the moisture goes out of meatloaf after a few years. I'm just lucky this didn't crumble into little scraps of hamburger. A lot of specimens that aren't put in albums do that.
Well, I know all those perils must add to the thrill of finding a well-preserved slice. And you say you have over 800 in your collection?
800, but of course most of them aren't too old or valuable. When I first started collecting, I just hung around the homes of celebrities and went through their garbage. The The meatloaf specimens I picked up there don't have much resale value, but I found it was a good way to fill up my first album without spending a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I can see it's a fascinating hobby, whether you're on a limited budget or have great wealth, Mr. Lightwood. and I want to thank you. Why don't you cover it up now? And I want to thank you for sharing your collection with us today. Now our time is about up, but we'll be looking into another interesting leisure time activity when we meet again soon in the Hobby Hut. Until then, this is Neil Klummer, urging you all to have a good day and find a good... Well, I don't know about you, Bob, but I sense a kind of uneasiness in the audience, which is usually a good excuse for us to leave before there's any bloodshed.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly, Ray, but there's nothing against trying to get away with it again next time before a different group.
I'm game. Meanwhile, thanks to Larry Josephson for developing and producing our show for the Radio Foundation, helped by our associate producer, Laz Hoel.
And thanks, of course, go to our musical director, Paul Taubman, our sound expert of many years' service to old B&R, Al Schaefer.
Technical director, David Glasser. Engineering assistants, Bonnie Newman, Miles Smith, and Jay Newland. And production assistants, Bill O'Neill and Charles Whitson.
Our program this week was recorded at Howard Schwartz Studios, New York.
The part of Howard Schwartz, as always, was played by Howard Schwartz.
Funding, in part, you might be interested in knowing, was provided by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting through NPR's Satellite Program Development Fund.
Now, this is Ray Goulding reminding you to write if you get work.
Bob Elliott reminding you to hang by your thumbs.
Additional funding from public radio stations. For a free picture of Bob and Ray, send a stamped self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000 GPO, New York 10116. Again, send a stamped self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000 GPO, New York 10116. We regret that we cannot send a picture without a stamped self-addressed envelope. This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.